Well, the clock is counting down the hours until William Reece, an admitted serial killer, is punished for his crimes.
An Oklahoma County judge is expected to uphold the jury's recommendation, sentencing him to death tomorrow morning. Before then, News 9's Lisa Monahan gives us an exclusive look at the confession tapes that sealed his fate.
William Reece was serving a 60-year prison sentence for kidnapping when investigators linked him to multiple killings. Breaking decades of silence, he gave chilling confessions for the crimes of abduction, assault, and murder. Now, for the first time, the details of this case are coming straight from the killer's mouth. And a warning, some may find it offensive.
Started out with my hands, started squeezing her around the throat. She was still fighting, and I grabbed that rope and wrapped it around her.
What happens next?
I just wrapped it around her and pulled it real tight.
William Reece sat in a stuffy interrogation room for hours. He spoke slowly and matter-of-factly about attacks on 7 women in Texas and Oklahoma.
So she basically dies when you put the lead rope around her?
Yes, sir.
Investigators knew he had killed 4 times, maybe more. Only now he was cooperating with investigators, helping them close cases from his 1997 killing spree.
Go ahead with the next one.
Reece began talking in 2016, only after DNA linked him to a cold case in Oklahoma, the murder of 19-year-old Tiffany Johnston. She disappeared from the Sunshine Car Wash in Bethany during the summer of '97.
I pulled in there, put the quarters in, I was spraying it. Cleaned out from underneath my truck. I started on the trailer part, and that's when that girl yelled, "Hey," I sprayed her. I started cussing at her.
Reece claimed he snapped, grabbed Johnston, and threw her in the back of his horse trailer. No one at the busy car wash noticed the struggle that ensued.
We was fighting, and I unsnapped her overalls. I don't know why, I can't explain it, it just happened.
He admitted raping Johnston, but insisted she was the only victim that he sexually assaulted.
Stood up to put my pants, pull up my pants and zip them up. She hit me in the back of the head with a horseshoe. Pissed me off and started squeezing her around the throat.
The next day, Tiffany Johnston's nude body was found in tall grass along a dirt road.
We still don't really know why he killed her. What if? Why would someone want to kill my baby?
Kathy Dobry may never get a satisfying answer to that question, but she knows what she'd like to say to Reece.
I would like to tell him what I really thought of him, which really wouldn't be nice on camera. I would like to tell him that he was a big liar.
Reece told investigators he'd never seen Tiffany before the encounter at the car wash. But Dobry says their families became acquainted in Anadarko in the early '80s. Reece's mother ironed clothes for the Dobry family and even pressed the clothes for Tiffany's funeral.
I really think he was stalking her like he did the girls in Texas.
The killer disputed stalking his Texas murder victims, Jessica Kane, Kellyanne Cox, and Laura Smither. Instead, he blamed them on spontaneous outbursts.
I still don't buy that story. If you listen to all the tapes and stuff and all of his lies that he told one time, and then he'd change it a little bit.
While Reece's motivation may be in question, he's been consistent on why he killed the women. In each case saying it was to avoid arrest.
I was choking her.
Okay.
And then I picked her up, put her in my truck, in the Jeep, strapped her in, propped her up like she was sitting there normal.
In the front seat?
Front seat.
Okay.
Put the seatbelt on her.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting there and thinking what the hell to do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything keeps going wrong.
Reece ran a bulldozer at the time of the killings, and he put his skill to morbid use along a stretch of Texas interstate where women mysteriously died over the years. In the so-called Texas killing fields, he buried a couple of the bodies.
I dig not too far from the fence. Go get her.
When pressed by investigators, Reece said he also took the victim's clothes to get rid of evidence.
I put her in the hole, and I dragged dirt, put it on top of her, smoothed it out.
A smooth, calculating killer, but he didn't cover up the murder of Tiffany Johnston, and he didn't count on her mother's relentless pursuit of justice.
I worked very hard on that, and if I'd have given up, we would have never known.
That William Reece killed her daughter and others, and Reece might have never been put on trial, convicted, and had to face the death sentence of his own.
The defendant, William Reece, guilty of murder in the first degree, fixed his punishment at death.
It's not going to bring her back. None of this will. The only thing is I got justice for her. And that was my main thing, is to get justice for Tiff.
And we will have live coverage of William Reece's sentencing tomorrow on News 9. And then join us at 10 o'clock for a special report inside the minds of the jurors. In exclusive interviews, jurors reveal what led them to their verdict and what disturbed them as they delivered it. That's tomorrow on News 9 at 10.
Justice delayed is justice denied. Justice will not be delayed any longer in this case. I sentence you to death.
An admitted serial killer is now heading to death row.
Tonight, the jurors who found William Reece guilty of killing a Metro woman are speaking exclusively with News 9's Lisa Monahan.
During the high-profile trial, the jury heard from everyone in this case except the defendant himself. Now, for the first time since they found William Reece guilty of murder, the jurors tell me they didn't need to hear from Reece on the stand because his taped confession was enough.
I just remember walking in and going, he's right there.
You have someone's life in your hands. It got pretty emotional. I think most of us cried. The evidence was pretty damning.
You just can't imagine somebody being that evil. So there was only one conclusion.
All rise. Madam Foreman, has the jury reached a verdict?
After deliberating for an hour and 45 minutes, the grim-faced jurors sat across from admitted serial killer William Reece and delivered his punishment.
We, the jury, impaneled and sworn in above the title cause due upon our oaths, having heretofore found the defendant, William Reece, guilty of murder in the first degree, fix his punishment at death. Signed by the foreperson.
The death sentence capped a lengthy and emotionally draining trial. 3 weeks of gripping testimony, graphic autopsy photos, and grainy confession tapes in the 1997 murders of 4 women in Oklahoma and Texas.
Stood up to put my pants, pull up my pants and zip them up. She hit me in the back of the head with her horseshoe. Pissed me off. Started squeezing her around the throat.
Reece was only on trial for the abduction, rape, and murder of 19-year-old Tiffany Johnston at the Sunshine Car Wash in Bethany. But the jury hoped the conviction would deliver justice to all of his victims.
I want him to see my face. I want him to see all the jurors' faces, because I think it's important that he knows that a jury of his peers found him guilty and gave him the death penalty.
Looking for some sign that Reece truly felt the weight of that sentence, the jurors instead watched the defendant twiddle his thumbs as the unanimous decision was read aloud by Oklahoma County District Judge Susan Stallings.
We would look over and then he was still, he was still like stone-faced.
He was detached, they say, but also disturbed.
I still can't get him out of my head.
Reece, they say, became animated at inappropriate moments and in inappropriate ways. What sticks with you now that it's over?
His mannerisms. When one of his victims was on the stand, and when she spoke about some of the things that he did to her, he was actually licking his fingers.
Almost like he was trying to intimidate them.
They think he may also have been trying to taunt the victims' families sitting in the gallery.
He made lots of faces.
Kathy Dobry found it almost unbearable to be in the same room as Reece as prosecutors detailed how he raped and strangled her daughter, Tiffany Johnston.
And then when they were showing Tiffany's body of what he did, it was like he was getting off on it.
As put off by Reece's mannerisms as they were,
And I was disgusted with him at that time. I tried not to look at him.
The jurors say they made sure to keep an open mind in reviewing the evidence, including the shocking admissions straight from Reece's mouth.
She's fighting. You know, I unsnap her overalls. I don't know why. I can't explain it. You just have.
Evidence was overwhelming. He gave it to us. It was obvious he was guilty.
In the confession, Reece claimed he wanted to tell the truth to help his victims' families get closure. His own defense attorney told the jury he confessed to avoid the death penalty, but prosecutors warned he'd never been honest about the motive, and jurors agreed.
I think there was a lot more to it, and I don't believe that's the whole truth.
Whatever his motive was, the confession tapes ultimately sealed his fate. Was it a heavy decision to make?
It got pretty emotional.
So she basically dies when you put the legal rope around her?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to make sure I didn't take this lightly, and I don't think any of us did. I just wanted to make sure that we were making the best decision based on the evidence and the testimonies that we were given.
The evidence, they say, proved Reece stalked his victims to satisfy his sexual needs, then killed most of them to avoid prison. What would you say about William Reece today?
I think he is where he needs to be.
Under lock and key in McAllister on Oklahoma's death row.
He shouldn't get the choice on how he lived out the rest of his life because he didn't give that to Tiffany.
Or to any of the other victims jurors are sure he killed.
He doesn't deserve to live. He took away a lot of life.
Oklahoma County prosecutors are also thoughtful of the other victims. Jimmy Harmon and Ryan Stevenson released a joint statement saying, "A death sentence is never something to celebrate, but it is an appropriate and just punishment for Tiffany's brutal murder. We hope her family, along with the families of Laura Smither, Kelly Cox, and Jessica Kane, can find some measure of justice in the jury's verdict." At the Oklahoma County Courthouse, Lisa Monahan, Oklahoma's own News 9.